It's the 1995 high school football game of the week here on Westchester 10 Sports. And today from White Plains, New York's Parker Stadium, it is the White Plains Tigers with a perfect record of 5-0 taking on the visiting Roosevelt Indians with the same perfect record, 5 wins and no defeats. Hi everybody, Eric Lubitz along here at Westchester 10 Sports, and we have a great game today. Two 5-0 teams. We think the two best teams, not only in the league, but in the entire section. And Pete Arciello, it's a regular season game, but hey, it feels like a championship.
Oh, it certainly feels like a championship. These are the games that you want to play in October. You get a couple good games under your belt, in this case 5 good games for each team, and this can be a dandy today.
Okay, now each team is tied for first place in League 1A, and as you look at the standings, you can see Mount Vernon is just 1 game back. Mount Vernon next week plays White Plains, so technically a White Plains win here today doesn't give them the championship because they then still have to beat Mount Vernon, but Roosevelt wins here today, and it's theirs.
I'll tell you, it'd be great to see a 3-way tie with 3 teams ending up with 1 loss, but I think somebody's going to get out of here undefeated. That team is obviously going to advance to the first playoff game.
If Roosevelt's to win today, they're going to have to do it in the air, at least partially. Chris Marcella is their very talented senior quarterback and leader, and Pete, he's thrown no interceptions this year.
He's thrown no interceptions, and I'll tell you something. Tony DiMatteo said flat out, this kid's a gamer, he's a winner, and that's all I need to know if Tony DiMatteo says it.
Okay, meanwhile for White Plains, as you take a look at Chris Marcella, he also plays defense and he anchors their defense. Meanwhile for White Plains, their quarterback, Michael Summers, last year their running back, great runner, all-section running back, now he's their quarterback. How's he been doing?
He's been doing great so far. Michael Summers is a kid who has progressed at the quarterback position by attrition. There was no one else to play the position. He moved from the running back slot. He has done a great job. He's throwing the ball more and more. Watch for him to throw the ball today.
Tony DiMatteo is in his 27th year as head coach of Roosevelt. We went over to Roosevelt and spoke with Tony, as well as White Plains, to speak with Coach Santadonato in this edition of Coach's Notes.
Well, it's definitely a very big game, but it's still an in-season game, and the loser still has a chance to go to the playoffs. But the winner is in great position because they'll have the first playoff game at home. So this is a very, very big in-season game, but it's really not a championship game. I think Mike's done a fabulous job. He's just a great player, a great basketball and football player. But what I think he's helped White Plains with is that he's a great leader. So I think with Coach Santadonato moving him to the quarterback was excellent. Well, the way I coach, I don't think that, because as the season progresses, I think you either get better or worse. You never stay the same. So this week we're either going to be better or worse. So we still have some good football left in us, and we're practicing hard. So I'm happy with practice, but I think we have better football ahead of us. I don't think. Well, it goes up and down. It was excellent against Ramapo. Wasn't so hot against New Rochelle. It was really terrific against Gordon, and I think we kind of adapt to our opponent. And I think you're going to see a great game, because I'm sure that White Plains is practicing as hard as they can, and so will we. You're 5-0 so far. Well, I knew we were capable of having an outstanding season, because I have 20 kids that are on my varsity and 22 that are varsity B. That's really only JV. So injuries were going to be the key. We're 2 players from being extinct. But if we stay healthy, I think we can play with anybody.
Well, Coach, how do you compare the 2 teams? Well, I think the teams match up pretty well. Roosevelt's a great football team. They're well balanced. They can throw the ball, run the ball. They have a bunch of different backs that can run the football. We don't throw the ball as much as they do, but we have a pretty balanced attack as far as the run. We can run inside, outside. We got an option game. So I say the teams balance out pretty well, but I think you can just throw all that out right here, because it's a big rivalry. We're going to play for a league championship, and I don't think it's going to make too much difference or what the predictions and this and that. It's going to be up to the kids. If the kids are ready, the kids are up, kids are focused, and who makes the less mistakes, the least mistakes, I think that's going to be the one that wins.
And there's Mark Santadonato. All right, Pete, let's get to the keys. First of all, Roosevelt.
For Roosevelt, very simply, they need to capitalize on the errors. White Plains has made a lot of just not very smart, mistakes. They've done a lot of things offsides and things like that. They need to eliminate that, which we'll get to, but Roosevelt has to capitalize it. Second of all, Roosevelt needs to control the line of scrimmage. White Plains has done a good job with their offense and defensive lines. Roosevelt has to maintain that to get their balanced offense going. And number 3, they have to exploit that secondary. We spoke to Mark Santadonato before the Scarsdale game. He was concerned about him. They haven't been tested yet. They will be tested today.
All right, and White Plains.
White Plains, it's real simple. They have to control that offensive line, which we talked about a little bit, and the defensive line. They've got to control both sides of the line. Second thing they have to do is they have to stop the sweep, and then the last thing they have to do is they have to neutralize the tight ends, and that'll stop that misdirection, off-tackle play that Roosevelt runs so well.
All right, it's about all we have from down here. All that's left is the kickoff. Roosevelt, White Plains, looks like it's for the league, and it's coming up next.
Our world is rich in cultural diversity. In the things we value, the patterns we make, the songs we sing. But we all share the same good earth. The air, the water, the land, the treasures of generations past. In fact, the more we travel, the clearer it becomes. There are many cultures, a single planet, and an urgent need to cherish both.
Roosevelt won last year's game at Tony.
No, we got to do it again, Craig. We got no monitor. Ralph, we got no monitor. We got no monitor. Nope. Black. It's in black. Ralph's working on it.
Repeat it. Don't rush your call. Once you've made a call, you live with it. All right? Roosevelt, you're the visitors. That's the head. That's the tail. Who's going to call it? While it's in the air, go.
Tail.
He calls it a tail. It is a head. The choice is White Plains. You can defer, you can receive, you can kick, or you can defend the goal. Okay. We'll defer. Your choice. You want the ball. What goal do you want to defend? Stand with your backs there, please. Roosevelt, here. Fellas, let's shake hands. Let's have a ball game.
Take a look at the officials for today's contest. Leo Dragani is the referee.
They receive. They lost.
And there is his crew.
Receive.
And we'll be all set for football. Last time that these two teams played, we'll get to that in a minute. Well, it is Pete, it rained here most of the morning, and it has stopped right now, but the forecast is for some more rain. We were on the field. What do you feel like?
Well, I don't think the field was, I don't think it was too slippery. There's a lot of grass on the field, so it's not a bad field. It will be a little wet. The grass will be a little wet, but it will not be a slippery field.
And the field guide is Rich Wanabar.
Last time these two teams played was last year. They play every year. They're in the same league, and Roosevelt won. But after that White Plains game against Roosevelt, they've won 9 in a row. They've won 10 of their last 11. They are one hot football team. They've won 13 straight at home, and it's been a long time. 5-0 this year, and now Mark Santadonato is the football coach of White Plains. Mark's in his 4th year. Pete has a record of 21-10. There's White Plains on the near sideline. We had a little technical difficulties, but now they're all straightened out. And we are all set for some football here as White Plains will kick off. They're in their orange and black. Roosevelt in the white and red. And there is Michael Summers. He is their kicker, punter, receives kicks, receives punts. Their quarterback, middle linebacker, does it all. 5'10" senior, 185-pounder. And the leader of this football team. So
Eric, I think one of the real important facets of this game is going to be set up real early. I think Tony DiMatteo is going to try to attack the secondary of White Plains. He's going to try to do that with Chris Marcella. I think we're going to see Marcella get the ball in the first series, try to get it up in the air, and I think Roosevelt's going to try to establish that early, and then they can go back to their basic set, which is just a wing tee running about 8 or 9 plays to perfection. But I think today he's going to do a little bit different. He's going to set it up off the pass.
all right, the Indians should get it first. Big crowd on hand here. League 1A championship, probably. Summers sets to put his foot into it. And he does, and it's kicked to the deep man, and it's number 2, Lewis Webb, who takes it, and Webb is clocked at the 20-yard line. He is hit and hit hard. And the Indians will start from their 24, 1st and 10. For Roosevelt, their quarterback is Chris Marcella, 5'7" senior, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. 464 yards in the air, Pete.
Chris Marcella, Tony DiMatteo, we talked about it in the pregame. He said he's a winner, he's a gamer. We asked him to compare him to one of his previous quarterbacks, and I said, who has he been as good as since? And he said, I can't even remember a quarterback who's been as good as him.
He's been great for DiMatteo. Ball at the 20-yard line. First play from scrimmage. And on first down, they'll throw. Marcella gets it off to his favorite receiver, and it's complete for a first down to Jason Mandera, number 3. So the Indians come out passing, and they have a first down and 10 to go. Let's take a look at the offense for the Roosevelt Indians. They run 7 guys who run the ball. Carl Major, Troy Lumpkin, Jerome Hubbard start. They'll also go to Dave Goldberg as fullback, Lewis Webb, Raheem Allen, Marvin Armstead as the other receivers. There's the offensive line led by Sean Oliver and Steve Anabi. The receivers, Mandara we just saw, and Grappi is the tight end. So it's a first down. The ball's over the 30-yard line, and on first down, Hubbard breaks a tackle and fights his way to the outside for a nice gain. So very hard hitting, and it'll bring up a second down situation for the Roosevelt Indians. 4 on the play for Hubbard. Chance to look at the defense for White Plains. Their front 4, the tackles, Bell is a good one, Martinez, Edwards, and Paris. Michael Varnett will also play up there. And then the linebackers for White Plains. Summers, their leading tackler 2 years in a row. Carlo DiPietro and John Hopka. They'll also use Jacque Ganston and Terrence Ewell. And then the secondary, all juniors, Young, Newkirk, Landrum, and Foendo. And boy, they hit hard like everyone does on White Plains.
They hit hard. You're going to see a new wrinkle today out of White Plains. You're not going to see much of Andy Martinez on the defensive side of the ball. He's been having some trouble with his knees. You're going to see Jacque Ganson. He creates a new dimension, a lot of speed on that defensive line.
36-yard line for the Indians, second down. We've played a minute and a half here at Parker Stadium. And straight ahead it goes to the fullback, and they should be, well, real close to a first down. We may have a measurement. Carlton Major, and that's the first carry for Carlton. Pete, all he does is average 8 yards per carry there.
Yeah, he's a big bruising running back, gets up in the middle, runs a lot of that misdirection play, and he's a real good running back.
It is not a first down, so it'll be a second down and inches from the 41-yard line. Well, third down and inches. Now they will measure. So assuming they don't make it 3rd and 1, and give us a little chance to talk about Tony DiMatteo. Tony in his 27th year, 173 wins. All-time Westchester mark, 52 defeats and 3 losses. He's only lost 22% of his games in his career.
Tony, there's nothing that I can say, or I think anybody can say about Tony DiMatteo that hasn't been said or is unjust. The guy is one of the classiest, as well as one of the greatest high school football coaches probably in the country, aside from the state. The guy is just unbelievable.
He has done more.
Excuse me, Eric. He has done more for the city of Yonkers in this school than anybody has done for any school in this county.
Probably right. 42-yard line, first down Indians. Major gets it again. And a good effort, 7 yards. Pete, you surprised how Roosevelt's line of scrimmage is they're winning the battle?
Well, we talked about how they had to control that in our keys a little bit. They have to establish controlling the defensive line of White Plains as well as controlling those tough linebackers, and they do it here. They get a good kick-out block. There's a little hole here. He just scoots up in there. Carlton Major scoots up in there. See how he protects the ball well, and he's moving forward, and he gets good positive yardage.
2 rushes for Major, 14 yards, second down close to midfield. Marcella keeps it. And Hopgood hits him short of the first down, maybe a gain of 1. Nice tackle that time by John Hopgood out of his linebacker slot. He was injured last week.
Yeah, he was. You know what's interesting about Roosevelt, and I think Mark Santadonato knows this, and they're going to defend it well as they did right there for no loss. Tony likes to run the option into the short side of the field, and that's exactly what they did on that play. Mark Santadonato knows that. I think he's going to try to shift his linebackers over a little bit to the strong side of the field and move his secondary over to the wide side of the field just to shade it a little bit to try to protect against that backside pass.
Look at Mark, pretty calm on the sidelines. Another 3rd and short. Well, last time they got the first down in seconds. This is 3rd down, 1 yard at midfield for the Indians and Marcella. He hands to Major, to fullback, and he is stopped by an aggressive White Plains Tiger defense. And the first one there, believe, was number 20 for the Tigers, and that's Jacques Ganson.
That's exactly what Mark Santadonato wanted to set up in that matchup. He put Jacques Ganson in there because he has tremendous speed. He's a running back, but he puts him on the defensive line. He has tremendous speed, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to disrupt those big Roosevelt offensive tackles and try to get in there in a hurry.
John Whitmire also in on it. So the Indians are stopped at their own 49, and they'll have to punt. We've played 4 minutes of a scoreless first quarter, and the punter is The punter is Lincoln Grappy. He went for 66 yards earlier this year, and he's one of the best punters in the section. And there's a great punt. And Pete, there's great coverage. And it's down all the way at the 10-yard line. Good coverage that time by Marvin Armstead, number 31. And that's an excellent punt. It goes as 42 yards, no return.
Yeah, I mean, Tony DiMatteo, Eric, has 42 guys, 20 of which are varsity football players. The other 22 are JV. They won't play any. He utilizes those 20 players to the maximum. You'll see them playing special teams. You'll see guys giving other guys blows, giving them a play off. And what Tony DiMatteo does there is he really utilizes his players.
Michael Summers is the quarterback. First possession for White Plains. 5'10", 185-pounder. We'll get a look at him after this first play. And on first down, he hands off straight up the middle, and not too much happening there for Dion Fuendo. Picks up about a yard or 2, and now we look at Michael Summers. Summers with 7 rushing touchdowns this year. Pete, he hasn't thrown the ball that much, but he certainly has the capability of it.
He has the capability. We saw a brief spurt of it when we did the Scarsdale game earlier. He has developed as a real good quarterback. He'll throw the ball well. You watch him today. He will throw the ball in the flats all day. He has better control throwing the ball deep down the field, but Santadonato worked with him a lot about controlling the short passes, not overthrowing him. I think he's going to try to throw in a flat quite a bit today.
From the 12, it's 2nd and 8, and on second down, Fuendo gets it again, and he's eaten up by James Atkins at the line of scrimmage, and it'll be a 3rd down. I was almost tackled him by the head that time, and there'll be no gain. Let's look at the White Plains offense. Fuendo has carried both times. He's a junior. He's got 7 touchdowns so far. The other big runner, Hopgood's got 8 rushing touchdowns. DiPietro is the fullback. Conrad and Paris, the receivers. The offensive line for White Plains, they're big. Andy Martinez at 235, Pomponi at 235, Bell at 220, and Masik Barnowski starting at tackle. Brian Noble out for the year with an injury. 3rd down. Hopgood, rather, Foendo again, and Roosevelt's defense ate them alive. It'll bring up a punting situation. We'll wait to the next possession to show you Roosevelt's defense, but you're looking at that big guy, Junior Sean Oliver, there with the great play.
Yeah, Roosevelt's a real disciplined, real good defensive team. You're going to see a lot of Tony DiMattio's personality in this defense. What they do is they attack, they play hard, but the difference is going to come down to if White Plains can play with this adversity. They have not been in a tough game yet. When you go to Roosevelt, when you only have 20 guys, every game is a tough game.
We'll come back to the defense next time White Plains has the ball. Here's the punt. Summers is standing at the goal line, and it's 4th and 4. And a long 4 at that. And he gets it off his left foot, and it takes a White Plains bounce, and that is just poor play there by Roosevelt's number 34, Jerome Hubbard. Really made a bad error, and because of it, Roosevelt will start at their own 33-yard line, and that'll go as a 54-yard punt, no return.
That's a huge, excuse me, Eric, that's a huge mistake on the Roosevelt side. You've got to catch that ball, even if it's a fair catch. You cannot allow a 15 to 18-yard roll on the ball. The other thing to watch for, Roosevelt just got tremendous pressure and almost got to the kicker there. We might want to look for that later in the game.
So the Indians have the football. There's 5:10 to go in the first quarter. Each team's had it once. Each team's been stopped. The Indians did get 2 first downs. Marcella's thrown 1 pass, a 13-yard completion to Jason Mandara. And they start from their 33, does Roosevelt. And on first down, outside we go, and look at that, Raheem Allen is being chased and caught at the 14-yard line. Raheem Allen, a 53-yard burst, and Pete, I said it before, they run 7 backs, and Raheem Allen won't get that many runs. He took advantage of that one there, the sophomore.
Yeah, Raheem Allen may have the best speed out of the 7 backs. You watch him get to the outside here, and it's just a foot race. Comes from a long line of Allen brothers. A bunch of them played at Tuckahoe. Now they're at Roosevelt. His brother, Rashawn Allen, graduated last year from Roosevelt. Now he's at Central State in Ohio. This kid has got blazing, tremendous speed. We know how quick White Plains is, and they had a chore trying to catch up to this kid.
53 yards for Allen. The ball is at the 14. Roosevelt, first scoring opportunity today. Hubbard. And he gets 5 big ones. And Roosevelt, at least in the first quarter, is winning the battle, the line of scrimmage on every play.
They're definitely winning the battle, but I hope we can get a replay of that last play. This is just an incredible play, and only a real good quarterback can run it. What he does is, it's almost a double fake. He fakes it to one guy inside, and then he comes back. It's a real misdirection play, but it's a bang-bang play. Not a good quarterback will fumble that ball probably 7 out of 10 times.
The ball is at the 10-yard line. It is second down for the Indians. They're in Ensign view. Marcella rolling, and he's stopped on the outside. And the tackle made by Dion Foendo, who chased down the quarterback for Roosevelt, and it'll bring up a 3rd down situation. We talk a lot about Foendo as a runner, but does an excellent job out of the secondary. They got 4 underclassmen back there for White Plains, and Foendo there makes the big play.
Dion Foendo is a big hitter. He comes up quickly when he reads that running play, and he makes a big pop there on Marcella. I'll tell you, although they have 4 juniors in the secondary, Foendo is the key there. He is the quarterback of that secondary. The other 3 could be a little bit suspect.
3rd down, big play, 3:48 to go in a scoreless first quarter. Marcella and the Indians. Here we go, in motion, and the handoff to Hubbard. Outside, he's got running room. Touchdown! Jerome Hubbard had to make one move. He made the move, and Roosevelt scores first.
It's amazing. Tony DiMattio before the game told us that every game is a chore for his kids. He only has 20 kids, and he termed it, and I quote, a miracle that they have come as far as they have. Let me tell you something. Those first 2 drives and how they've executed so far, that's no miracle. That's Tony DiMattio coaching right there, and he's got a good, solid bunch of kids. This is a real good football team.
A 10-yard touchdown run. And they will go for 2. Now we'll kick the extra point. So the extra point kicker for the Indians is Stephen Nobby. And it is blocked into the line of scrimmage. So blocked. And it is 6-0 Roosevelt. And a very surprising start to this game. Roosevelt moved the ball to the outside against White Plains like no one has all year long. And that's a happy Indian sideline right there. They got the ball in the lead first. Here's one of the assistants, Brian Cregan.
Yeah, I don't know if it's as surprising as you might think it is, Eric, but I'll tell you something. Tony DiMatteo is coming here with a great game plan. Roosevelt is known as that great misdirection inside guard trap play, linebacker ISO and guard trap. They run it out of the wing tee. Chris Marcella's shown throwing the ball a lot this year, so they obviously have that passing game established. But what they've done so far is they've run the ball outside the tackle and outside the end, and it's been tremendously successful.
So the Indians strike first. And what a play, the 53-yard run by Raheem Allen. Grappy's also their kicker. Already saw what he can do as a punter. And he'll kick off from the 40. White Plains will get the ball for the second time. Summers, Foendo are back there. Don't forget, White Plains has trailed before. In fact, they trailed in the last 2 weeks against Carmel and against Clarkstown North, and they've come back to win again. So maybe this White Plains team likes playing from behind, and it's the only choice they have today. They're going to come back to win it.
I don't know if Mark Santadonato wants them to play from behind.
Certainly not against the Roosevelt team that hasn't given up more than 8 points all year. Summers fumble. He picks it up, though, and take it out over the 25-yard line to the 27. So that's where White Plains will start, and maybe some of the butterflies both of the teams had are gone now, and they can settle into football. 6-0 Roosevelt. As you look at Summers, you know, we didn't get a chance to show you the Roosevelt defense last time, so maybe we'll have a chance after the first play, or if not right now, to show you their defense. And there's their front five. Goldberg, Oliver, Nobby, Eifler, and Atkins. Atkins, an excellent one. In fact, Atkins took the SATs today, along with Marcella. There's the rest of the Roosevelt defense. Lincoln Graffy. Summers throws. And is it complete? Do they call it good? Yes. Completed pass to Hopgood. And Pete, I want to tell you, he took some kind of shot after the 12-yard gain.
Lincoln Grappy just laid an absolute wallop on him. But I'll tell you something, Foendo did a fantabulous job of keeping his hands on that ball, cradling it, and keeping his feet in bounds.
So they mark it as a gain of 16 yards, and the first White Plains first down. And Michael Summers doesn't throw all that much.
He doesn't throw all that much, but Mark Santadonato said he's worked on his throwing the ball a lot more in the past few weeks. He has tremendous accuracy throwing the ball for long yardage plays downfield, but he doesn't have that touch that he should have on the short yardage, and they've worked on that quite a bit.
From the 43, under 3 to go, and there's Foendo. And he'll go ahead and pick up 3 yards. A lot of people don't realize, who obviously don't follow White Plains all the time, Summers was an all-section running back. Last year over 600 yards as a junior. And he was converted to a quarterback only by necessity for the team, and he took it in stride, and he's doing anything he can to help the team win. He wasn't supposed to be their quarterback. Marcel Landrum, Sean White are their backups now, but there were a couple other guys who were penciled in to be the QB. Tim Pellegrin, Cooper, Sean White as well. They didn't get it ready on time, and he's been the QB, and a great one in there. Nothing doing as he runs into Sean Oliver. And Sean Oliver, 5'10", 220. What a big line Roosevelt has. They have Dan Goldberg at 260, Oliver's at 220, Atkins at 240, and that time Oliver was waiting for him.
They do a good job. They're a good read and react defense. They get in there quickly. Sean Oliver's one of the studs of that defense, only a junior, as you see, 5'10", 220. But he does a good job of shedding his man and getting into the backfield and making tackles.
Certainly does. As you look at the big team there's Eifler, excellent player, standing next to Oliver. So it's third down from the 45, and they got a long way to go. 8. Foendo to the outside. zigging and zagging, and he's got a first down. Excellent run by Dean Fawendo. He knew where the yard marker was. He got the first down.
That's exactly what Tony DiMatteo wants his big defensive ends to stop. He does not want Summers, Fawendo, or anybody to get outside on him, and they've done it successfully twice now, and you're going to see him try to shut that down. And here's the way he can shut it down. He puts the monster back to the wide side of the field and lets the monster back, who's Lincoln Grappy, out of the linebacker position, he lets him just play, basically only run. Just only run.
Fawendo, 7 touchdowns, 575 yards coming into the game. What a big game he had last week, 189 yards against Clarkstown South, had 131 and 3 touchdowns the week before against Carmel. First down, straight ahead we go, and that's Hopgood, and that's the first time we've seen him today, on offense at least. He's one of their captains, and he's got 8 rushing touchdowns. He's actually got more than Summers or Fawendo, and that time he picked up 7. And there's the Indians scoring drive, the first scoring drive of the day. Hubbard's 10-yard run capped it, and the big play of that drive, Raheem Allen's 53-yard run.
Yeah, Raheem Allen really turned on the Jets there, got the big run, got him in position for Jerome Hubbard to get the big touchdown. And I'll tell you something, those extra points can come back to haunt you.
Hopgood again, down the sideline, and he's out of bounds inside the 15. Finally stopped by Marvin Armstead, and the secondary making a lot of tackles for Roosevelt.
James Atkins had a chance for him in the backfield. I don't know if we're going to get a look at this, but had a chance for him in the backfield, and the big 6'6", 260-pounder just didn't wrap him up. He just tried to shoulder him down, didn't wrap him up. This is after the fact, after he got by him, and they had to just they had to get some good pursuit downfield and make the tackle on Mr. Hopgood.
Ball at the 13-yard line. A 24-yard run, and the third first down of the quarter, and White Plains is moving. Final minute here in the first quarter. Fawendo gets a few, and that should be the play of a final play of a very exciting first quarter. The Indians got on the board. 3:39 to go in the first quarter, and that was it. They lead it by a score of 6-0. We will come back from Parker Stadium in White Plains in a moment.
You can volunteer 2 hours a week or 20. For more information on our intern program, call Paul Carridio at 899-9020 between 9 and 5, Monday through Friday.
During the weeks of October 1st through the 12th, TCI cable subscribers will experience interference and blackouts of satellite programs. This distortion is caused by what is known as sun outages. Twice a year, the sun moves directly behind the satellites that feed our system and interferes with the satellite signals. Sun outages usually occur between the hours of 1 and 3 p.m. and can last up to 20 minutes. Because the satellites are in a set spot, we cannot control this problem. We apologize for this temporary inconvenience.
6-0 Indians through one quarter of play. Eric Lubitz, Peter Arciello will be joined by Dan Loughran. Field side, as the situation warrants. And the rain has started right now. And it's coming down medium length. And White Plains has the football in great shape as the second quarter starts inside the 10 at the 9-yard line on a second down. Two championship teams, and they're just going at each other. Roosevelt struck first, and see if that block point comes back to haunt anybody. Hopgood outside. Here he goes. Touchdown, John Hopgood, but there are flags down on the play.
There's a flag down, and I'm not really sure. I didn't catch what it was. It may have been a clip or a hold on the outside.
And it will be against the offense, and Pete will look at it again.
There it is right there. I think they're trying to, I think they flagged either the tight end or the tackle on grabbing James Atkins. Well, actually, I'll be honest with you, that flag came in very, very late, and they called that hold. I bet you they called that hold on somebody blocking down on one of the linebackers, because the running back was almost in the end zone when the referee pulled the flag out of his pocket. So they might have called that on somebody blocking down. That's one of those penalties that will just absolutely kill you because it had nothing to do with the play.
Wow, and it goes all the way back to the 19-yard line. They can get a first down. And at our first penalty of the football game. So the Tigers have it with 11:50 to go in quarter two. That was the opening play. Here we go. Hopgood again. Again going outside, and he fumbles the football, and the Indians are, well, let's wait and see. No, White Plains recovered it, and now the wet field coming into play. It looked like Roosevelt had a big opportunity to pick up the loose football, but they didn't. Hubbard, 34, almost had it.
Eric, Raheem Allen actually was the guy who had his hands on it first once it squirted out there, and he couldn't. He tried to pick it up instead of just jumping on it, and then Jerome Hubbard had his shot at it. You see Raheem Allen right there, just jumped right over the ball.
Oh, went out of bounds is what happened. Okay, yeah. Allen is the starting corner.
Excuse me, Eric. I'll tell you one thing. James Atkins has done a great job of getting penetration for Roosevelt, but he's done one thing wrong. He's trying to tackle these White Plains running backs that aren't really big guys. He's trying to tackle them around the head, around the shoulders, and they're squirting out of him. That's the third time that he had a hand on a running back in the backfield and did not make the tackle.
Atkins, 6'6" junior, who Tony DiMatteo says is a Division I player at some point. Got another year after this in high school. And there is a player injured on the field as you look at Santa Donato, but we're trying to figure out who is actually down there. We mentioned Arnold Clinton, Mark Amagoto are Santa Donato's assistant coaches. And there you see the delay on the field. It is 6-0 Roosevelt. White Plains is driving, and they were inside the 10-yard line, but a holding penalty which negated a John Hopgood touchdown, and now a fumble put them all the way back at the 20-yard line. There are the stats through one quarter of play. 86 yards rushing, but 53 of those for the Indians on Raheem Allen's run. But Hubbard with the touchdown run, also 19 yards. Foendo with 20 yards rushing and 31 after a quarter for Hopgood for White Plains. Total yards in favor of Roosevelt. Dan Loughran's on the field. Dan.
Eric, I was talking to some people in the stands just before the game, and they said that this is one of the biggest rivalries White Plains is ever going to see. They say that Scarsdale, Mount Vernon, and Roosevelt are their biggest rivalries, but Roosevelt is the big one, and they got to keep an eye out for him. The mood on the sidelines of White Plains was a little bit subdued just after that first touchdown by Roosevelt. They know they have a lot of work ahead of them, but I'll have more for you just after this injury report. Back to you.
Eric, you know what's real interesting? We have a great opportunity doing these games week in and week out, year after year, of seeing coaches develop. Now, I really thought this was an interesting thing that Mark Santadonato said last night. I said, what do you tell your kids going into the season? Do you tell them to just win every game? And he said, no, I don't. He said, I set goals. It's a league first, a bowl game second, a state competition third. And I really think that's a great maturing factor that we're seeing there in Mark Santadonato.
Carl DiPietro was the player injured. He's on the sidelines. Summers fakes the throw, and he fumbles the ball out of bounds. He's down at the 20-yard line, and Hubbard makes the tackle. White Plains appears to be dipping into their bag of tricks a little bit.
Well, you know, Mark Santadonato said he was going to do a little bit of that. He was going to switch it up and put Summers in the backfield. You know, we documented that he's a great running back and was a great running back until he became the quarterback, and it just gives a different dimension. But Jerome Hubbard, he's one of those linebackers that has to make the big plays for Roosevelt, and he made a big one there.
Yeah, he's the guy with the touchdown. He's playing the monster back or strong safety, any way you look at it, and he's been doing a great job.
Yeah, I actually misidentified Lincoln Graffi a little bit earlier as the monster back. Jerome Hubbard is the monster back, and you're going to see White Plains try to run and throw away from the side that Hubbard lines up on.
They will go for it on fourth down. They're at the 20-yard line. They can get a first down, and now they will call a timeout. So they will call a timeout. This is their first timeout that they've called. As you look at the crowd, Pete, nice crowd on hand here. So many umbrellas up. Now it has stopped raining for the moment. So it's been off and on, but not too hard so far. The Roosevelt Indians, let's take a look what they've had to go through this year. They started off, their defense has really been the story for them. They haven't given up more than single digits in any of their first 5 games. And there we look at the standings. We talked about each team up at 5-0, but let's look at their schedule. They haven't given up more than single digits in any of their games, shutting out Clarkstown South. And they really, they beat Mount Vernon, but maybe early on. The big one, they defeated Ramapo 42-8, and Ramapo, an excellent team, was a 1-point loser to North Rockland. That game doesn't count for the point system, which is absolutely ludicrous. The way the system they have it, I understand little by little they make improvements so far, but it's unbelievable the way they have it set up. It's just so poorly set up.
Well, after what we saw last week with the Sleepy Hollow game, where we thought they were going to have the Kansas City shootout and they didn't, nothing surprises me with Section 1.
4th down, here we go. Back to the field where it all matters anyway. Whitmire's in the backfield. Summers fakes it. He's going to throw. No one's open. Up for grabs. He goes. Touchdown, White
Plains. We talked about the inexperience of the White Plains secondary. That just wasn't a good play by the Roosevelt secondary. You never allow a receiver to get behind you in the end zone, especially a big kid like Jason Conrad. And I'll tell you something, Michael Summers did a great job of keeping his downfield vision in the face of a rush, and he did a super job. We get a good look at it here. You'll watch Summers, he's getting rushed from every which way. He steps up into the pocket, not a fake there, just couldn't get it off, and he's got 3 guys around him. And he sees Conrad in the back corner of the end zone, he just tosses it up. And I'll tell you, Raheem Allen and Chris Marcella, I'm real surprised that Marcella, being the quarterback and the quarterback of the defense as well, was not in good position and allowed that guy to be wide open.
And Summers waited, Pete, to the absolute last second before he was clobbered by the suffocating Roosevelt defense, and he got it off. Dan Lochran, go.
Eric, Carlo DiPietro, the 10th grade sophomore from White Plains, hurt his ankle in that last couple of plays. He was taken off the field. They think it's going to be okay. He's going to walk around on it. He may be back later in the game, but we're not sure. Back to you.
Thanks a lot. And more than Pete, what they really miss him on is he's a key linebacker for them, DiPietro. Sure, he's their fullback, but defensively is where they'll miss him the most. And there is Conrad, who was in the end zone that time, and he got behind the Roosevelt defenders, and give him credit. Nice catch. He's a 6'3 senior. He also, he's the extra point kicker if they do decide to kick the extra point here. He had a big catch, 42-yard catch in the Rochelle game. They like to go to him. He's their split end, and though they don't throw much, they can, and this has got to give them confidence for future games.
Sure, he's their best receiver. He did the smart thing. He got to the back line of the end zone, and he just got open and made a good catch.
Okay, Conrad will try to make it 7-6. Remember, Roosevelt's point was blocked in the first quarter, and this one is perfect. So White Plains, who trailed 2 weeks ago at Carmel, and then last week 7-0 against Clarkstown North. And here they trail. They once again have taken the lead. Now the interesting thing is, once they've grabbed the lead in the other games, they have not yielded it. We'll see what happens here.
Yeah, the next possession for White Plains is going to be real important. As you said, Eric, they haven't given up leads once they've gotten them, but the one thing that they have done is they've accelerated those leads. They've jumped out to big leads after making the comebacks in a hurry, and they're going to need to do that today. On the other side of the coin, Roosevelt's got to get a good drive going. They've moved the ball well, but they've only gotten in the end zone once.
Seven to 6, White Plains over Roosevelt. And there's 10:37 still to go here in the first half, rather.
Number 34.
Summers will kick off.
for the second time today. Back there is Hubbard. And there is Michael Summers, lefty quarterback, huh? Who would have believed it a year ago? And throws the touchdown pass. Puts the foot into it. It's high. It's not deep. And it's fielded by one of the up men, and that's David Goldberg. And he goes backwards. Whitmire was there. Ewell was there. Ganson was there.
I'll tell you, Eric, they're fired up. This White Plains bunch is a fired-up bunch of kids, and that's a great way to play in a big game. It's great to have your top emotional game in a big game like this.
Here's Goldberg. He's a twin with Dan Goldberg, two of the stars of the team, and this time, look at that. He runs into, actually, it was number 22, the first one there, which is Terrell Holdip. And he's a sophomore. That's the only time he gets to play, and took advantage. First down for the Indians. They're 23-yard line, trailing for the first time in the football game, 7-6. Marcella, quick out, and he could be gone.
Goodbye.
Raheem Allen, 3 yards ahead of his defender, and wow, what a touchdown.
We talked about his incredible speed, Eric. Chris Marcella threw it right into the seam. It's called a pop pass, throws it one step right into the seam. Caught that secondary that we had talked about before as being a little bit weak, a little bit inexperienced, caught him off guard. And I'll tell you one thing, you will not catch that kid in the open field.
77 yards, what a monster play. Marcella to Allen, and boy did he go. And now Roosevelt will call a timeout. So there's Tony DiMatteo, and they will call a timeout to figure out what to do here, because they lead it 12-7, and they will have to go for 2 points. And just like that, in under a minute, we've had 2 touchdowns, and the crowd is a-buzzing.
Oh, they're a-buzzing, I'll tell you something. But you know what we have the opportunity to see here? Watch this. Just the safety, Michael Summers, the linebacker, Michael Summers, takes a step back, but the safety takes a step up. And once this kid gets a step behind him, Mr. Allen is long gone. I'll tell you one thing that you see in great illustration there is Tony DiMatteo coaching. He is always 2 to 3 plays ahead of where they are on the field, and he knew right away that play was going to be open. He doesn't expect it to go 76 yards for a touchdown, but he knows that they're going to get 10, 15, 20 yards on that play. And when you got a kid like Allen with that kind of speed, he can break it at any time.
All right, we have Dan Loughran before the 2-point conversion. Dan.
Eric, that touchdown was changed at the line. The Roosevelt quarterback came up, called an audible, saw the weaknesses in the White Plains defense, then capitalized on it. And the mood here on the White Plains sidelines is swinging like you wouldn't believe. They're up 1 minute and down the next, so it's going to be a tough second half when they get back on the field. Back to you.
All right, Peter, so an audible, and Marcella, he's got to be smart to be able to do that.
Well, yeah, we talked about it. He took the SATs earlier today. Tony DiMatteo has a lot of confidence in him. The kid is like a second coach on the field, and he has the opportunity to call an audible like that.
They will go for 2 because their lead is 5, so it makes sense to get back up by 7 if they can. It's a tight formation. Marcella throws it, the option, he pitches. And into the end zone goes the speedy Lewis Webb, one of their 7 runners. Who's quicker than the next guy on this team? Webb was lightning.
It's amazing. We heard Tony DiMatteo talking to us before the game about how disappointing it is to have 20 kids and, how tough it is, and everybody's got to play, and he dresses the JV so at least he looks like a full team, and he's got 20 kids. But I'll tell you something, I will take 20 well-coached Tony DiMatteo kids over 40 kids that aren't as well-coached. He has these kids in tip-top shape. This kid steps off the bench just the first time he's touched the ball, and he has tremendous speed. I'll tell you, I put him and Raheem Allen. You give those 2 kids, Webb is only a junior, Allen is only a sophomore. You got those 2 kids in a year or 2 years, and you can forget about it. They have got just unbelievable skills and speed.
That's Whitmire, and he's a little bit injured there. Looks like his arm, so he's being helped to the sideline. We'll try to get you an update on him. That was happened on a 2-point conversion. For Webb, he has 2 touchdowns. One of them a 67-yarder this year, so he can fly. He's just 5'3". Allen's just 5'7". So they're proving you don't have to be big. Certainly not at the halfback position.
Well, Eric, they're not big, but if you can't catch them, it doesn't make a difference how small you are.
So the first quarter was what we thought. Defensive quarter, pretty good defense, 6-0, and then they've exploded. 2 quick touchdowns. There's still 9:46 to go. It's 14-7. The Indians, the latest to have the lead. Lincoln Grappy is their kicker. Grappy, a junior, 6-foot tight end. He played with Summers in junior high school before he moved to Yonkers. And he kicks it to Summers, his old teammate, at the 10. And Summers is downed at the 24-yard line. Making the tackle for Roosevelt was Jason Mandara, number 3, and Carlos Delgado, 44. Good coverage on this by Roosevelt.
Yeah, real good coverage, but this gives you a good vision as to what Michael Summers would do if he were still a running back. He is just, look at the speed, watch this little spin move, takes a good pop here again. I'll tell you, he is just an absolutely pure running back. It's a shame that they could not find a quality quarterback to run this team and put him in the backfield with Hopgood and Fuendo. That would be an unbelievable, not combination, I guess you'd call it a triplex instead of a duplex.
25-yard line, 9:15 to go. It's 14-7. The Tigers trail for their second time in the football game. Hopgood to the outside, following some blockers, and he'll just get a couple that time.
I'm going to give you something to watch for, Eric, here. If you watch on this last play, if you saw it or if we get a replay here, you're going to see very good pursuit by Roosevelt. Tremendous pursuit, almost over pursuit. Watch how they're getting... See how they get to the ball? Now, I'll tell you something. That's real good because you get a lot of gang tackling and you make a lot of short tackles. But I'll give you the flip side of that. That is going to set up Michael Summers running the naked bootleg, which we saw a couple times against Scarsdale. And if they get that kind of pursuit, he could be gone.
And there's the Indians' latest score. And the 78-yard pass should have been Webb. Well, was that... no, I guess that was Allen. That's right. And 2-point conversion was Webb. And under a minute was all it took. And Allen's got 2 monster plays to his credit so far. Second down for the Tigers. Summers in trouble. He's in trouble. Look at him. And he finally gets out of bounds. You know, he did all that for no gain. And he got a lot of tired getting no gain. What was going on in that play?
Well, I'll tell you something. What was going on was I was made to look like a fool. I talked about this naked bootleg that I thought that we were going to see, and I think what Mark Santadonato had the same theory that I had, and he tried to run that little naked bootleg, but the defensive end and the linebacker played it absolutely perfectly. And I'll tell you something, that is a great compliment to Michael Summers, showing that on a broken play such as that, because he didn't have his naked bootleg set up, the broken play, he turns around and he gets a yard or so, he gets a few yards running it in there, but he got all that on his own. He was 15 to 20 yards back.
There was the White Plains scoring drive. They happened so quick, didn't get it to you. Summers on 4th down to Conrad, 20-yarder, and that was a nice drive, 10-play drive. But right here, this will be a 3-play drive unless they get a first down. Summers gets nothing. He pitches it forward, and that is, I guess that's a pass, Pete, because it went forward and it'll go to Fuendo, but it'll be short of first down. So it looked funny, but it's a legal pass.
Yeah, I mean, as well as looking funny and being a strange play, it's also a very, very dangerous play, because if you're obviously across the line of scrimmage, it's going to be an illegal forward pass. So, you know, that's a tough play. If he drops it, if you're behind the line of scrimmage and he drops it, it's just an incomplete pass. It goes back to the line of scrimmage. But I don't think that's something that Mark Santadonato needs to see again today.
So the Indians have stopped with 7:42 to go here in the first half, leading at 14-7. They get the football back in good shape. Summers punted 54 yards on his first one. Now this time the Indians will send 2 back. Hubbard is back. And Hubbard takes it on a bounce at his 39. And Fuendo eats him up after a 4-yard gain. Great coverage by Dion Fuendo.
Excuse me, Eric, that's a great play by Fuendo. He runs right through the wall set up by the Roosevelt guys. It was a pretty decent wall on the punt return right, and he runs right through it and makes a great tackle.
And here it is one more time.
Watch this. You're going to see a couple of these guys peel off. These guys up front peel off and set up a little wall there, and you're going to see them all facing us, and you're going to see 28 just run right through the wall. Runs right through it and makes the tackle.
There you take a look at Dion Fuendo. One of the stars of this football squad. All right, 43-yard line for Roosevelt. Clock is ticking toward the 7-minute mark. Marcella has been spectacular. Little pop pass was the last play. Went for the big touchdown. And this time he keeps it and he runs into Michael Summers. So didn't fool anybody that time, and Michael Summers makes the defensive play. And Summers,
I think Chris Marcella may have twisted his ankle. Let's get a good look at this. This could be a big play here. Michael Summers gets a hold of him and just doesn't let go. And he grabs that left ankle, gets caught in the turf, and you see him spinning around like that. I think he may have twisted his ankle.
Well, Marcella's a warrior, and he will stay in there. Summers, we talked about, we were asking about being a quarterback, being a running back. So what's your best position? He said, linebacker.
Yeah, he led the team in tackles last year. He's leading them again this year. He can play the linebacker position, but it's really strange to see that happen, to see your leading tackler, your middle linebacker, also be your starting quarterback.
And I wonder what the effect of Marcella's ankle is. He's hobbling around a little bit. They've committed their first penalty. As you hear from Leo Dragani, our referee today, and it'll be a 2nd and long. So now it's 2nd down and 2 first downs, Lane, 2021.
But, excuse me, Eric, before that penalty, we got a good look at something that White Plains does quite a bit, and I think we're going to see them in it a little bit more here if they can neutralize these passing situations by Roosevelt. They come out of their base 4 and they kind of shift it down and move a linebacker up, and if you get a good look at it there, it looks like a down 5 line, an odd man line.
2nd down, Marcella over the middle, and it is intercepted by Dion Fuendo, and the intended receiver Atkins fell down. Atkins is furious that there's no penalty flag thrown.
But I'll tell you something, there shouldn't have been a penalty flag down. That was incidental contact. They just got their legs caught up, and he went down, and Fuendo made a real good interception there.
That is the first interception thrown by Marcella all year long. Now, penalty or not, let's see, Atkins is the intended receiver.
Just Jason Young never put a hand on him. It's just they got their feet caught up, and Mr. Atkins went down.
Fuendo, the strong safety with the INT. So we're midway through a very exciting football game of the 2nd quarter. Midway through, and at the 40-yard line, White Plains has it. Option. And Summers gets nowhere, and what great pursuit by, it looks like number 55, Dan Goldberg, and Dan is a 5'9", listed at 260 junior, and look how quick he is here.
Watch this, Eric. Watch this on the option. You got Dan Goldberg up there. You got Atkins up there playing the quarterback, and then you got Lincoln Grappy on the pitch man. There's no way to go with that option when Roosevelt plays it like that. Normally, the rule is to get either your end or your down tackle on the quarterback and get your your end or your linebacker out on the pitch man. Right there, they had 2 people on the quarterback and 1 person covering the pitch man.
Straight ahead to Whitmire, and that time it was Steve Anabi. It's a different big Roosevelt player in defense every time. Excellent play by Anabi, the nose guard. You take a look at Steve, 6-foot senior, 210.
Yeah, he's a real good one. I'll tell you, we talked about controlling the offensive and defensive line of scrimmages here. Roosevelt right now is totally manhandling White Plains on the offensive line, and White Plains just can't get their base blocking down, and without being able to get that base blocking down, they put themselves in a situation where they can't run the ball.
3rd down, counter. Fuendo reverses his field. And he's right at the 1st down marker, and Dion Fuendo turned a sure loss into an 8-yard gain, and it could be a measurement, or did they make it? Let's see where they're going to mark it. I guess let's see where they put the ball. He did make it. What a run, Dion Fuendo. Great second effort.
Yeah, great second effort, and I'll tell you something. If you looked at that play midway through, you saw Raheem Allen coming up, and you're saying, oh, gosh, with that speed, Raheem Allen, can make the play before the 1st down marker. But I'll tell you something, Dion Fuendo put his head down and just ran right over Mr. Allen and got the 1st down.
Ball is on midfield. Sits right on the 50. And on 1st down again, Steve Anabi didn't yield an inch. And Whitmire got maybe 1 yard, and that's it. And now Dan Loughran is got something. Dan.
Eric, here's the latest on the injury report on the White Plains sidelines. John Whitmire Jr. hurt his shoulder. He's going to be back in. They're suiting him up now. They wrapped his shoulder. It's nothing serious, but he will be back in the game. Back to you.
In fact, Pete, he was in that last play, Whitmire, with the shoulder, but he's still holding it a little bit. Off camera, we see him on the sideline. We've hit the 4-minute warning, and it's 14-7. The Roosevelt Indians, they scored first late in the first quarter on a 10-yard run by Jerome Hubbard, and then the second quarter, White Plains got on the board on a 4th down, 20-yard touchdown pass from Michael Summers to Jason Conrad. Roosevelt came right back. Next play from scrimmage, Marcella, 77-yard touchdown pass, pop pass to Allen, and Raheem Allen ran it all the way, 77 yards, and that's where we stand. 2-point conversion made it 14-7. There's the Tigers' schedule. They had 3 shutouts before playing 2 tough games the last 2 weeks and beating 2 pretty good football teams, and they got a tough one still with Mount Vernon. Fawendo gets maybe 1, and it'll bring up a big 3rd down play because, Pete, they don't make it here and they'll have to punt.
Yeah, I think they will definitely have to punt and try to pin Roosevelt back a little bit. I'm a little bit surprised. Mark Santodonato talked a lot about the past few days about getting the ball into the flat via the air, and they haven't thrown the ball in the flat at all. They've gotten some pressure from Roosevelt, which may have precluded them from doing that, but I'm a little bit surprised he hasn't tried to roll Summers out a little bit and let him get the ball into the flat to one of the big tight ends, Conrad or Paris, or even somebody out of the backfield.
3rd down and about 8. And nothing Summers could do that time as he's tackled by Sean Oliver. It looked like sort of an option type of a play.
Well, it was set up to be an option, but it just never developed that way. And, you know, what he has to do is Michael Summers has got to take it himself. Roosevelt gets to the ball tremendously fast. They get around the ball quickly. They make good plays defensively. They're a real strong defensive team. You'll watch here, there's somebody going to be on the pitch man. First of all, Michael Summers played that a little too tight. You're supposed to play it on an angle, advancing the ball forward when you run the option. He did that a little too tight and put himself in a bad situation.
Summers' 3rd punt, and it gets by. Oh, it's fielded. Dangerous play. And all the way back at the 5-yard line is Lewis Webb. And Lewis had about half a second to spare. He had to grab the thing if he was going to grab it, and that's the second time today Roosevelt's sort of made an error. I can understand you don't want to make a mistake, so you stay away, but that is a mistake in itself.
Yeah, that's a mistake. Once it gets inside the 10-yard line, you do not want to chase the ball back to pick it up and try to run it. There's too many bad things that could happen as opposed to the good.
And there's the coach and the pupil. The quarterback, he sends him in, and looks like his ankle's okay, Pete.
Yeah, he's such a tough kid. I mean, it's going to take a lot more than a little twisted ankle to keep him out.
Here's Tony DiMatteo. Assistants, Frank Magrino, Juan Aquino, Brian Keegan, Dick Papalardo, Artie Allen. Do a great job at Roosevelt. DiMatteo's 27th year. All-time winningest coach in Westchester County. 1:40 to go. Indians just want to avoid a mistake, and there's a handoff to the fullback. Michael Summers makes the tackle. That was Carlton Major, who carried the ball a little bit early, 3 times in the first quarter. That's his first carry here the second quarter. Coach DiMatteo trying to keep the forces, the troops rested as the clock approaching 1 minute right now, and Roosevelt sure would be happy with a 14-7 halftime lead.
Yeah, Tony DiMatteo is just going to run the ball twice here, if he even needs to run it a second time after this next play, and he just wants to get the let the clock run out, move on with it, get the kids in the locker room, talk to them a little bit, and get ready for the second half with a 7-point lead.
Hubbard looking for a hole, and it'll be close to a first down.
The technique of these two teams is just incredible. I don't know if we're going to be able to get a look at it, but on that last play, downfield, Jason Mandera, who's the split end, had his guy, watch this, Eric, watch downfield. See Jason Mandera at the top of your screen there? Look at that block. He's got 10 yards downfield. That is what separates a good team from a great team.
This should be our final play of the first half. The Indians have it at their 16-yard line, and the unofficial clock is 20 seconds as they lead it by 1 touchdown. Now Mandera is set up all the way to the left. Who's to say they won't throw it all the way down? I'm surprised White Plains is not in more of a prevent situation here. And they will go for it. And Marcelo will run instead. And he'll go out of bounds at the 23, and that should be our final play of the half. Let's see. Unofficially, there's 0 seconds up on the clock. The officials are conferring, and now that is the half. So, we've played a half. It's been an exciting one, and the Indians have a touchdown lead. Halftime's coming up.
My wish is to visit my grandparents on their farm and pet the cats and ride the horse and just be able to see them.
My wish is to meet the Golden State Warriors basketball team.
My wish is to get a computer to help me in school.
I wish I had a mountain bike because I really enjoy being outdoors.
I like dinner.
These kids aren't asking for very much. Please, help us give it to them.
Welcome back. It's the Indians 14, the Tigers 7 at halftime. Let's take a look at our halftime numbers from this very exciting League One, Conference 1, League A football game, matchup of 2 unbeatens. Let's look at the numbers. Pretty even as well. They're the first downs, pretty even. Yards rushing for the Indians. They are led with 25 yards from Hubbard on the ground, actually 53 for Allen, who had that one big run. White Plains pretty much down the middle, 32 Hopgood, 28 Foendo, so they've combined for 60. And yards passing, everybody has completed passes. Roosevelt 2 for 2, 90 yards. White Plains 3 for 3, 39 yards. And each team with 1 touchdown pass and just that 1 turnover, the Marcella interception. Let's look at the scoring summary. First quarter, Roosevelt got on the board with 3:39 to go. Hubbard's 10-yard touchdown run made it 6-0 in the second quarter. Early on, minute and a half in, 20-yard fourth down pass play from Summers to Conrad. The extra point made it 7-6 White Plains. And then the following possession, Chris Marcella pop pass 77 yards to Raheem Allen, and the 2-point conversion good, and the Indians a 14-7 lead. Pete.
I'll tell you, it was a real good half of football, the first half. But it got decided on a couple big plays, and this is one of them. The touchdown run early on by White Plains. You see him get to the outside. A great seal block by Dion Foendo.
And this is the Hopgood touchdown, which was called back.
That's right. That was the holding. That was the play that got called back on the holding penalty. And then they scored just a short time. Well, I'm sorry, they scored a little while later on the big 4th and 20 play to Foendo.
Right, but that play, that was the play which was a late flag came in on Hopgood's touchdown, but they still scored in the same drive, so they still got their 7 points in that drive anyway. So it really didn't cost them points on the board.
Well, it didn't cost them points on the board, but that gets back to what we talked about in the pregame. Those are the mistakes that Mark Santadonato said they cannot have.
There's the score. Chris Marcella, as we mentioned, 2 for 2, 90 yards. Michael Summers, 3 for 3, 39 yards. Certainly a very entertaining first half of football here from Parker Stadium. And this was the fourth down play. The touchdown from Summers Look at this, Pete. Very great how he waits to the last second before he finds Conrad.
The great thing he does here, he doesn't see anybody open. He tucks it back down. He thinks about running. Then look at the pressure he's under. Intense pressure. Conrad does a great job on the back line of the end zone, getting open, getting behind Allen and Marcella, and that's the touchdown.
Yeah, really, really nice play for the Tigers, who really haven't been able to do all that much offensively. The coaching staff thought they'd be able to move the ball maybe a little better than they have in the first 2 quarters of play.
Well, I honestly think that Mark Santadonato is going to try to open it up in the second half. He talked about trying to spread Roosevelt out. They haven't done a good job of spreading them out. Now is the time to do it. Put some formations in there that may even put two people split. Get them spread out, open it up a little bit, try to run the ball in those open seams, in those open lanes, and that's how they're going to get to that Roosevelt defense.
The captains re-meeting at midfield. Here's the play of the half, the pop pass for 77 yards.
Great play. One step, Marcella to throw, and as I said, Summers tried to get back there, but look at that move he puts on the free safety, and he's gone. This kid, we talked about it a few times in the first half, is uncatchable in the open field.
Thomas Newkirk couldn't get him as Allen just flew down the field, and a very entertaining half with a 14-7 score. And that's what they lead it by, a touchdown. White Plains should get the football first. And they will. We're hoping Dan Loughran could have got a word in with Mark Santonato, but it doesn't appear like that's going to happen. The Roosevelt Indians will kick it off with the 14-0 lead, 14-7 rather. It is not raining at all right now. It rained a little bit, portions of the first half, but right now it's not raining. A little bit cool out there. No sun out. Excellent football day, and Lincoln Grappy, junior kicker, will put his foot into it.
Kicking off to start the second half is number 42, Lincoln Grappy of Roosevelt.
It's kind of interesting kick return set up here by White Plains. They have 2 men deep. One guy who I can't make out his number, looks like Dion Foendo, is outside of the numbers on the right side, and Summers is right down the middle of the field, and they do a good job, Roosevelt. They kick it to the side that there's no one there.
Summers at his 7th.
Is it going to be a reverse?
And it is a reverse. And Foendo is tripped up by Mandera. So excellent play by Jason Mandera, going from side to side of the field. Good call, Pete. Very astutely saw that, and so did Mandera. So White Plains will have the football, and we'll relook at Michael Summers. What he did in the first half, technically 4 rushes, 4 yards, off a lot of broken option type plays, but he threw the ball 3 times, 3 for 3, 39 yards. And that's what he's had to contend with, that big Roosevelt line and defense. And you can see the guys, Nabi in the middle, Oliver on his left, Goldberg on his right, David Goldberg, 32 on his left. And on first down, up to the 20-yard line go the Tigers, and the ball carrier is Foendo.
Foendo on the carry.
And he'll pick up 5. Foendo had 28 yards rushing in the first half, 20 of those in the first quarter, and there's Oliver making the tackle. Once again, Foendo, and once again he stopped. He ran right into Lincoln Grappy, senior linebacker.
I tell you, Eric, I'm a little bit concerned as well as surprised that Mark Santadonato hasn't tried to open this up. I mean, if you look at what Roosevelt's doing defensively, they've got 8, what is equivalent to 8 or 9 guys within 3 yards of the ball, and you know it's tough to play. It's tough to run an offense against that type of defense. So, you know, I'm a little bit confused as to why they're doing that, and they come out again in a double tight end formation, working out of the wishbone.
Third down, the counter play gets nothing. Right there was Stephen Nobby, and Hopgood is short, and it'll be a fourth down punting situation. Give the Indians credit. Major also helping out Nobby.
I'll tell you, Roosevelt's doing a great job defensively, but they don't have to defense all that much. Mark Santadonato talked about when he was on the defensive side of the ball today, they had to play balanced defense. They had to play both the pass and the run. As you get a good look at Juan Aquino, who was a big star at Lincoln for a long time in Lincoln High School in Yonkers. But I'll tell you something, Roosevelt hasn't had to defense much. I mean, they're getting a couple different looks in terms of plays, but in terms of formations, it's basically the same, and it's all very tight.
Hubbard on the fourth White Plains punt. Flags are in the field, yep. And he'll get to the 40, but it looks to be a clip, so probably will come back.
I think there might be two of them there, to be honest with you. I think Jason Mandera may have gotten one, and Carlos Delgado may have gotten the other. There's one, and that's probably the other one, Mandera on the ground with his player.
All right, so we'll push the Indians back. And Pete, we talk about this every week. The penalty is from the
First down.
There's Marcella coming into the game. For DiMatteo, the question is, can he one day be the all-time New York State leader in total wins? The record is by Johnny Barnes, so it's 287. So DiMatteo would need over another 100 games, which would take him a long time.
Well, I don't know about a long time. I mean, he's had some great success. It might take him not more than 12 or 13 years, which might be exactly as long as it takes him to get through his youngest son, Albert, playing for him. And that's something he said he always wanted to do, was have his other two sons play for him. His son, Tony, played for him when he was younger as well.
Marcelo, look at that run! And that was a gutsy run by Marcelo, and he gets a first down, and those were the 16 toughest yards I've seen all year.
Yeah, I mean, this kid is so tough. He's not a quarterback. He's really not a quarterback. He's a fullback playing a quarterback position. That's how tough this kid is. You watch him here, he shakes some people off, and you got to get a clear shot at him, and you got to tackle him real sure, because this kid won't go down.
And he really didn't. Finally, Carlo DiPietro, linebacker, making a tackle on Marcelo. So it's a first down for Roosevelt inside White Plains territory, and the Tigers have jumped. And that was Hopgood, and that was Whitmire.
Foul, encroachment, defense,
and that'll cost them 5 yards. Been pretty much a penalty-free game. White Plains has been hurt by penalties this year, but not really today.
No, not really. They got hurt on, obviously, the penalty that called back the touchdown, and then they did subsequently get the touchdown. But, I mean, that's a major, major no-no. They haven't been killed with them, but they still, these little naggy-type penalties makes that fella right there a very, very upset man.
8:43 to go. Fumble! And the Indians have retained possession, so it's a gain of 1, actually, and it'll be a third down situation. And Roosevelt's lucky because they had a 1st and 5. That doesn't really cost them since they got the ball. And there's Webb into the game now, number 2.
The speedster. Yeah, I'll tell you, this might be a prime situation for Tony DiMatteo to throw the ball. 2nd and 5, probably, the more ideal situation is the 1st and 5 situation, but it didn't work out. They had the fumble, they got it back. This might be a nice place to throw the ball.
There's Mandera, bottom of your screen. He's their number 1 receiver. They give it to the little guy. Webb speeds his way to the outside, and he is hit behind the line of scrimmage by number 27 for the White Plains Tigers, Melvin Paris.
Big defensive end. You watch this one thing, we saw Lewis Webb on the extra point, how quick he is. Watch how fast he goes down, though. He's not big at all. He's actually only 5'3", 140 pounds, and you see him getting tackled by the big defensive end, Melvin Paris, at 6'2", 185. He went down like a ton of bricks.
Only thing Paris had to make sure is he didn't go under him that time.
Which James Atkins has done on the other side of the ball a few times today.
Third down, 7:19 to go, third quarter. Roosevelt 14, White Plains 7, 3rd and 6 for the Indians. And it's a double handoff. Inside it goes to number 2, and that is Lewis Webb, and they gave it back to him that time. And that's the type of play that looks dangerous if not executed perfectly, but it was.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it early in the game. They did it then, and they executed it real well. It's just a counter is all it is. You got one running back going one way, you fake it to him, and you give it back to the other running back coming the other way. And, you know, what you're trying to do is you're trying to misdirect the defensive players, and it didn't really misdirect anyone there.
That's Atkins. He's the plays some tight end, also plays defense for Roosevelt. Here we go. It is a 4th down situation from the 45-yard line, and back to punt will be Grappy. And that will be against the Indians, and they'll give back those 5 yards.
Delay a game. 4th down.
And you can see the referee with some problems with his knee as well.
Yeah.
So players aren't the only one with knee
I was
trouble.
going to say, he looks like he's been through a little bit himself
Leo
so
Giorgani,
far.
yep, makes the call. So the ball back at the 50-yard line, and it's a 4th down and 11 now. And they'll need a good punt from Grappy. And it's a high snap. Grappy picks it up. And now is the ball loose? White Plains has a football. A major error for the Indians on a horrible snap. And Grappy just couldn't kick it away.
He just couldn't get rid of it, but I'll tell you one thing, he didn't make all that, I don't think he made all that great of an effort even catching the snap. Granted, it was a high snap, but it looks like that kid can't even get his arms over the top of his shoulder pads. He's got a big neck brace on. You know, that's not, you know, the play was the bad snap, and he tries to turn around, and I'll tell you something, he almost tried to get off a little pass there, which he didn't, and they just, I think it might have been Jason Young or Marcel Landrum. Which number did you get out of there, Eric? One of them picked up that fumble, though.
Jason Young did, but the Paris made the hit, and Fuendo runs into a Nobby at the line of scrimmage and just gets nothing. And now, once again, a little bit of rain starting to fall here at Parker Stadium. No gain for Fuendo, and Santanato gets the break as their 13-game home winning streak in danger here as we're midway through the 3rd quarter, and they are at the 15-yard line. What a break. If you think about it, Roosevelt had the ball in White Plains territory there, 1st down, and now look what happened with that high snap. Counter to Hopgood, and the counter, he worked a little bit early, but really hasn't fooled anybody as of late. No gain again for John Hopgood. In fact, he'll lose 2.
Yeah, and the reason why it hasn't fooled anybody is the Roosevelt defensive line is just absolutely 100%. Look at that right there, Eric. Take a look at that. You've got 4 guys in the backfield. They are just absolutely manhandling the White Plains offensive line, throwing them around. And it's not a makeshift line, but they've had some problems up front. They had Brian Noble went out with the eye injury, the detached retina. But I'll tell you something, they have not risen to the occasion today in this big game in keeping these Roosevelt defensive linemen out of the backfield.
3rd and long for White Plains, 13 to be exact. And Dan Fuendo will be lucky to get back to the line of scrimmage, where he's met by 4 or 5 red and white shirts.
Now we're going to come up on that 4th down situation again. It's going to be 4th and 10. If they're going to throw the ball on the White Plains side, they got to, as we get a good look at that last play.
That's another tackle by Jerome Hubbard.
Yeah, I mean, they just, no one's putting any helmet, any block on them. And these guys are just making good plays inside and out. Getting back to what they're going to do, Tony DiMatteo on the defensive side, he's going to go out there and he's going to tell his secondary, no one can get behind you. It's 4th down, give him an 8-yard pass, give him a 7-yard pass, but don't let anybody get behind you. On the other side of the ball with White Plains, Mark Santidonato's probably telling him, he's probably putting in one of his, he's got a couple crazy plays. I talked to him about him last night. He may be trying to throw one of those in there.
All right, we look at DiMatteo, okay? So he's got his 173 wins, and he's got a field named after him already. You know, so you think a coach after all that happens, these are things that usually happen at the end of a career. You know, he's in I believe he's in the Westchester Sports Hall of Fame already. You know, usually these things are post-career, but he's got 2 young kids. He said he'd like to continue, hopefully coaching them. So he's not only through, but he wants to coach a long time more, and he just loves it and does such a good job. And technically, I mean, he's not really interested in the wins, but he's 114 away from the all-time New York State record, which is Johnny Barnes. But realistically, the guy who's in second place, he could pretty much get that in 10 years if they just continue to go win 6 games a season. But you know what he said? His exact quote was, "The records don't mean much, but the thing he remembers is all the lives he's touched through the years at Roosevelt."
I mean, he's had some great football players there. We'll talk about him right after this play.
4th down. Here we go. Last time was 4th down. They scored a touchdown. Summers in the end zone, batted away at the last second by Jerome Hubbard. And Hubbard has been the star all day for Roosevelt on defense. And what a play at the last second.
Hubbard made a great play, but the play was really set up by Dan Goldberg and James Atkins. Watch the pressure they get on him again here. They get on Michael Summers. They get a piece of his arm. And watch that. See that ball wobbling up there? That's because they got a piece of his arm. If he gets to throw a good pass, he's got a receiver open in the end zone, and we could have a tie game right now.
And if he did get that, there might have been some question to, was his knee down? It looked like he'd slipped. Remember, if your knee goes down, you're down, and I don't know if it did or not. So Roosevelt has the football at their 15-yard line, 4:08 to go. Just a great football game. On 1st down, the handoff is up the middle to the fullback. I believe that was that Hubbard or Goldberg?
I think it was Dave Goldberg.
Yeah. And interesting thing, Dave Goldberg, I mean, we haven't seen that much of him today running the football. He's got 4 touchdowns rushing and a touchdown catch, so they're very deep. But that time, no gain. Good White Plains defense.
Yeah, nice White Plains defense. They've got to. I tell you, if their offensive line did half the job that the defensive line has done today, they'd be in a lot better shape right now.
2nd and 10 Indians. Still up a touchdown. Hubbard outside, and he's hit from behind. Excellent open field tackle.
Great play, John Hopgood. Great play by Hopgood. Read the run, came running up out of his defensive secondary position. I'm sorry, out of linebacker position. He came up in a hurry, saw that it was a run play, and he made a real good play on that one. Looks like White Plains, Eric, is staying in that 5-man down front. Their regular 4 defensive linemen, and they just substituted in their Jacques Ganson, who's got all the speed. And they haven't gotten out of this 5-man defensive front since probably midway through the 2nd quarter. And now we're very late in the 3rd.
3rd and 12. Hubbard in motion. Another counter straight ahead.
That is just an unbelievable play by Michael Summers. That shows you really why he is one of the best defensive players that you're going to find in the county. It's just a little counter play, a little counter trap. You see both the end and the guard pull out, and he just runs right by them both and just makes the most surest tackle you ever see somebody make. Sticks his nose right in the belt buckle, gets good grasp around the arms.
And that was Armstead carrying the football that time. So Marvin Armstead beat Michael Summers, and they were going backwards that time. So it's 4th and long, and from his own end zone, Lincoln Grappy will punt with 1:55 and counting left in the 3rd quarter.
Can't afford a bad snap.
Grappy's a good punter, though.
That's returnable by Summers. We saw him return one against Scarsdale.
At the 50. Look at his coverage, though, by Roosevelt. And he goes down. What coverage by the Indians. And it's, not easy to outrun 6 players.
No, but he could have saved himself 10 yards there by just going forward, getting 2 yards, and going down.
And Armstrong makes the tackle. And Dan Lochran, what you got?
Eric, I was just over on the Roosevelt sideline, and Coach DiMatteo is not letting up a bit. He knows he's got a lead, but it's not by much, and he knows against White Plains, he's got to be tough. And nobody over there is taking this team lightly. Just to let you know, I'll be back in a couple minutes.
All right, Dan. All right, so closing moments here in the 3rd quarter. 1.5 minutes to go, Pete. And White Plains back with the football. Their defense is doing the job, playing very well here in the 2nd half. Their offense unable to get anything going, though.
Well, this is, we talked about him spreading it out, and I'm just shocked to see that they don't even have a split end in the offense right now.
7 total yards in the third quarter for White Plains. Hopgood. And you know what? He didn't get much that time, Hopgood, but all day these backs blocked for each other, and he was right behind Fawendo. And just because they're not getting a number called there, they're working just as hard. But the Roosevelt defense came up big.
Yeah, the Roosevelt defense has come up big. We talked about how we thought Mark Santadonato was going to, try to spread it out a little bit. What they're doing is they're packing it in and then trying to get to the outside, and that's not working. So what they can do now is try to spread it out and then get the ball to the inside. Again, double tight ends.
Hopgood got 3. He's got 33 yards. Fawendo through a hole into the Indian secondary and a first down. Grappy with the tackle, but not before 13 big ones.
I guess that's what Mark Santadonato was trying to set up by keeping this tight offensive set. Just get the one good block. Looks like Dion Fawendo might have strained his hamstring a little bit there. He's a little gimpy, but he was trying to get that one good seal block, which you could see is kind of a tough angle to see it. But he gets the good down block there on Inabi and a good kick out, and he gets into the secondary, and then he's got to do it on his own once he gets there.
38-yard line. Fawendo has the biggest play of the third quarter for White Plains. Hopgood is tackled high, and they're going to call a flag on Hubbard. And Hubbard's been excellent in the secondary. What a game he's played. But, Pete, that tackle a little bit too high. Let's look at it.
Well, I'd like to see what he's going to call on this one.
On 12. Personal foul, face mask.
Oh, he got him right. You're right, Eric. Got him right around. But it wasn't Hubbard who made the penalty.
It was Atkins.
It was Atkins. And I told you early on, he made 3 tackles up around the head, and he's got to learn to tackle in the numbers, tackle on the belt buckle. They won't be as dramatic, but they'll be as effective.
Wow, and that's going to hurt Roosevelt, because that's going to put White Plains in great shape as Hubbard.
Personal foul, face mask. We have a personal foul, unsportsmanlike conduct.
That's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe they're only going to execute one of these penalties, however.
I think the most they can do
15
is 15.
Which should take it to the 23-yard line, and there is Atkins on the sideline. And he's like the Roosevelt staff told us, he's going to be the player that's going to go on to the next level out of all these guys. He's just a junior right now, and they do march it off 15.
But he's just got to learn to control his temper, to be a little bit more sure on his tackling, and to play numbers. Don't play the helmet. Actually, I guess on unsportsmanlike conduct, they have to mark both penalties off.
That's
it's
25,
not a double penalty.
Yeah.
It's a penalty, and then it's a major penalty. Unsportsmanlike is unlike any other penalty.
25-yard penalty. The Tigers are at the 11-yard line. Summers inside the 10 to about the 9, where he's clobbered. Goldberg made the tackle. Dave Goldberg, that is 32, and we may have time for one more play here in the third quarter, Pete.
That's it's a good block. There are a bunch of good blocks, but when Roosevelt's going to play 8 and 9 men within 3 and 4 yards of the line of scrimmage, it's a little bit too difficult to make those tackles. I'm sorry, to break those plays is what I should say.
Okay, that is the end. The time is official here. We've played 3 quarters, and it's 14-7. Exciting 12 minutes left.
If you think city kids have seen it all, think again. Most city kids have never seen the country or enjoyed the freedom of playing outdoors or running barefoot. You can help. Be a host family for the Fresh Air Fund for 2 weeks this summer and give a child a fresh point of view. Please host for the Fresh Air Fund and make sure a kid from the city really does see it all. The Fresh Air Fund, because we all have enough to share.
Gannett newspapers. Today and every day. Make the most of where you live.
All right, 14-7 Roosevelt. And what a controversial play there to end the third quarter as Atkins was called for the face mask. Good call on the face mask. And then unsportsmanlike conduct. And we'll take a look, Pete. Here it is.
Well,
There's Summers has handed off. Hubbard makes a great tackle, but Atkins helping out inadvertently. Didn't mean to do it, but got the face mask. Correctly called. But then he celebrated a little bit.
Well, he must have either celebrated, which would be, I think, a real tough call to make, or maybe even more than that. He may have said something to the official when he got the penalty called on him.
On second down, Fowendo following a blocker into the end zone. And you know who he followed? Michael Summers.
That's the first time that White Plains has been able to get outside, get that good seal block, and any of their running backs has followed the lead and got behind those big blockers. And Michael Summers was one of the key guys in that play and let it ride up there.
And there you see it.
You've got to, when you score in the first play of the fourth quarter, you've got to kick the ball. They've got a real short kicker in Conrad. Got the wind behind him. Just kick the ball up there, get the 14-14 tie, and play good defense. They've played good defense for a good while now.
Fowendo's 8th touchdown of the year, and Conrad will try to tie it up at 14. Got a full quarter to play. He was good on his first attempt. Conrad caught the first touchdown, and he'll go for the tie. It is up, and it is good, and it was partially blocked, it looked like.
But they've got a flag on the play, which came in very late, and it could either be a roughing the kicker. I think he's going to pick it up.
They did pick it up.
He's going to pick it up because it's not the line judge's call to make. It's the referee's call behind the play to make, and if he felt it was a roughing the kicker, you just have two different opinions on your refereeing staff.
It's very interesting. White Plains in the second quarter started the quarter deep in Roosevelt territory, and they scored in a minute and a half. And then the same thing happened at the end of the third quarter. They were deep in Roosevelt territory, and they scored, and here is the score.
Watch how he gets behind John Whitmire there, Michael Summers, and it's like a wall. They set up a wall, and they just seal off those defensive players from getting to him, and Fowendo just trots into the end zone.
Great block by Summers, and now it is raining, and this is pretty much as hard as it's come down so far today. Look at that guy. There's Martinez getting the fans into it. It's 14 off. Now, if they do end up in a tie, they will play overtime for sure in Conference 1. So the Kansas City shootout for
We're sure of that after last week, huh?
Yeah, Conference 1 does play it. So now it's raining. Now it's tied. What more could you ask as we head into the fourth quarter? $14 apiece, and the Indians will get the football here on the kickoff, and way back is Hubbard, and it's kicked into the end zone. And Pete, I think that kick shows us something, what you just alluded to earlier. It is windy at this field, and the wind right now is in favor of White Plains here in the fourth quarter. Remember that with Chris Marcella as the quarterback.
Right. I mean, it's definitely behind White Plains' back now, which would be a great advantage for them. I'm surprised that Roosevelt didn't take advantage of this in the third quarter trying to throw the ball, but they elected not to. Now they go 14-14. White Plains has to come up big with some good defensive stops here and get the ball, and I think they've got that renewed interest, that renewed confidence. You saw one guy was pretty pumped up, Michael Summers, just booting one into the end zone.
11:55 to go, so we got a whole quarter, and it's all knotted. A brand new ball game at 14, so from the 20 we go. Jason Mandera lines up all the way to the right. Hubbard is in motion, and they go that way. And Marcella is hit.
Michael Summers again.
Summers again, Melvin Paris, Carlos DiPietro were there. And a loss of 2.
We are seeing a great duel between two game warriors in Chris Marcella and Michael Summers right now on both sides of the ball.
Really have. And now it's 2nd down, and we'll see what happens. 2nd and 12. Neither team wants to make a mistake. Roosevelt's made a couple so far today. And that big one, which enabled White Plains to score on that punt. And once again, behind the line of scrimmage. And that was the first time today we've heard from Troy Lumpkin, a senior halfback. And he goes backwards. Last 2 possessions, White Plains defense is pushing them back.
And I'll tell you one thing, if they don't get a first down on this play, it's got to, I repeat, got to be going through the snapper's head about that one that he blew over Mr. Atkins' head. I'm sorry, over Hubbard's head. No, I'm sorry. I don't even know who the Roosevelt punter is right now.
Lincoln Grappy.
Yeah, Lincoln Grappy. He blew over his head early on, and he'll be thinking about it on this one.
Well, right now, Roosevelt's thinking about a first down with 10.5 to go in the football game. All tied up at 14, and there's a mistake as Whitmire jumped, and it'll cost them 5. But it'll still be a 3rd and long situation.
It'll still be 3rd and about 10, maybe 9. So, you know, that mistake isn't going to kill you, but it just gives them 5 less yards they've got to go to get that first down.
So it is 3rd down, and the clock is still ticking away. So now we'll see what they do. See if this changes the play from 3rd and 14 to 3rd and 9. And the fullback got 0. And right there, once again, number 27, and that's Melvin Paris as Major gets nothing. And here comes Grappy to punt for the Indians.
Roosevelt brings in a new ball for this punt. Try to get that dry ball in there. The referee's got the towel over it in the center of the field. And Dan Goldberg is going to be the fellow who's got to snap it.
And remember, the ball is wet, the field is wet. It's not a heavy rain, but it's medium, and it's driving because it is windy. And against the wind is Lincoln Grappy and his punt. 9:30 to go. And the snap is perfect, and the kick is very high but not deep, and they'll need a bounce. And they don't get it. They don't get it, and just an absolute atrocious punt as it goes 8 yards and 8 yards net, and Roosevelt has made their 3rd crucial second half mistake. Dan Loughran, go ahead.
Eric, I was just talking to both coaching staffs, and they just said that this is a whole new, brand new ball game. It's tied up right now in the 4th quarter, but the big question is the weather. Which side is going to be able to handle the slick conditions and the steady wind coming from the end zone? So that's going to be the key, especially on the minds of a lot of the coaches down here on the field. Back to you.
All right, Dan. Pete, he's talking about the weather conditions. And did the weather have anything to do with that 12-yard punt, 8-yard punt?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're kicking into a pretty stiff breeze there. He did kick it straight up in the air, but he was kicking into a pretty stiff breeze, and then how the ball landed, it kicked back about 10 yards. So, I mean, yeah, I think it has something to do with it, but I don't think it's really gonna affect the outcome of this game. How this wind's gonna be blowing.
From the 30-yard line, off the option. And Hopgood will get a gain of 4, and that's a dangerous play in wet weather by Michael Summers.
A very dangerous play, but Fuendo and Summers have worked together very, very well. They're good friends, and, they must feel comfortable with it to do it. I mean, you want to run this forward. You see how he's not making progress? You want to run the option forward, have good relationship with your pitch man, and then give it off and let him get upfield. You can't be going backwards. That's the taboo against running the option. You cannot run the option backwards. You got to run the option either diagonal or moving a little bit forward. To move it forward, you need a good push by your offensive line.
2nd down and 7. White Plains in good position after the unusual poor punt from Grappy, an excellent punter. Fuendo, great blocking. Oh, is he hit hard? Is that Grappy? Yeah, it is. Oh. And Fuendo, I don't know how you get up after a hit like that.
Wow. I mean, that's how you step up in the 4th quarter inside of 9 minutes. Watch this hit. Summers gives it off. It's just that lead option. That's the lead pitch. That's just the same thing they did on the touchdown. And wow, That is a hit. That young fella can lay a wallop on you.
And you know what amazes me is Fuendo gets up, still in the football game, and he's ready to go right back at it.
They're a tough bunch. Hopgood, Fuendo, DiPietro, and Summers. They're a tough bunch.
Here's the play. Third down. Fuendo gets nothing. They gave it right back to him, and he ran right into Dan Goldberg, and Dan just said, I don't think so. So it'll be fourth down.
With this wind.
Let's quickly look at the third quarter stats, and these are stats through 3 quarters, and Roosevelt a little bit on their side. And, the only real difference is they have that turnover, but plus, which is not a turnover, the punt went over the head, plus the 25-yard penalty. So a couple plays like that which don't show up on the sheet.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about in the keys early on where White Plains had to take, Roosevelt had to take advantage of White Plains' mistakes. It's turned out to be the complete opposite so far.
25-yard line. They're going to go for it. What else really can you do in this situation? 4th down and 6. They do not need a touchdown here. Just 6 yards to move the chains. Summers rushed, gets it off, and is it complete? No. And he dropped the football. And what great timing and intuition of Michael Summers.
He is so elusive back here,
yeah.
Eric. We get a good look at it here. He's got an eye downfield, and now look at the pressure from Hubbard. He just gets away, makes a good throw, and DiPietro just couldn't hold on to it. He holds on to it, though. It's a first down.
Yep. Not a bad play, but DiPietro couldn't hang on, and now it's 6:58 to go. Roosevelt has the football, so they get it back, and they're at their 25-yard line. They haven't scored in the second half. Got all their points in the first half, and there's Allen. And he'll pick up 3. That's Allen's second carry of the day. His first one went for 53 yards, so it was about time he got another one. And he picked up 3 up to the 28 as the clock ticks toward that Kansas City shootout overtime period. Here's the Tigers' score. Fuendo's 8-yard touchdown run behind that great blocking, and there's the drive. Didn't even take him 2 minutes. And didn't take him 2 minutes, but it took him part of 2 quarters.
Yep.
The end of the third, beginning of the fourth. And here we go, second down now. And Marcel looks like he's calling an audible at the line. Goes, he has a man, Hubbard. Hubbard is wide open, and he'll score. And there are no flags. And right on the line, Marcella called the audible at the last minute, and a wide open Jerome Hubbard gives the Indians a 2014 lead.
This kid is just a super quarterback. You know, we talked to Tony DiMatteo before the game, and he talked so highly about Chris Marsala. I hadn't had a chance to see him yet this year, but one thing I said to Tony, I said, you know, what about his size? He's not a big kid. He said, it doesn't matter. He's that tough. He's that much of a gamer that he steps up in situations like this. That's exactly what he did. We talked early on about the inexperience. It was in our keys about the inexperience of the White Plains secondary, and this is a prime example. There are 2 receivers behind the secondary on this play, Eric, and I'll tell you something that we just got a glimpse at in the beginning of that replay. Chris Marcella had somebody right in his face, and he stood in there. He took the hit as he delivered the ball, and that's a great play by quarterback.
You know, and both quarterbacks have done that all game long. They've given each of their teams every ounce and every chance that they've had to win the game. But that's the guy who's been the best player on the football field, no doubt, today, Jerome Hubbard. Defensively, he's got 2 touchdowns in the game. He didn't have to do much in that play. The ball was just right given to him, but he did have to make the catch and run as well. But he's been the guy for Roosevelt today, and they have themselves lead. This one's a long way from over.
Yeah,
Still with 6:01.
I think Hubbard's been much more impressive on the defensive side of the ball. Much more impressive on the defensive side of the ball. But he's made his opportunities, and he's made his big plays on the offensive side as well.
And there's Mike Marcello, the brother of Chris. Certainly proud of his younger brother today. And now Roosevelt up by 6 will try to kick an extra point. And you can see right there, as Anabi's trying, as he's a lefty kicker as well. So it's got a couple of lefty kickers in this game. It's a little bit unusual. But you got to wonder right now about the field and the wet ball and the wet field, and we'll see. I mean, White Plains kicked their point.
Yeah, I mean, how Scarsdale, I was going to say, excuse me, how Roosevelt dominates the offensive line. I'd go for it. I'd go for the 2. I'd run the ball, or even your short passing game. You've got such a smart, good quarterback. I'd try to get the 2, not for the fact that you're going to get the 8-point lead, but the fact that I think it's a lot surer bet than this kick.
All right, well, we'll see. Marcella is not in there, so the holder is Jason Giuliano. He is the backup quarterback. A high snap, but he puts it down good, and it is no good. So both Indian kicks have been blocked by White Plains, and
that could be a huge factor. White Plains, I was going to say it about 2 minutes ago. I was going to say, if we get this Kansas City shootout, I thought that White Plains had a little bit of advantage because they've got a real good kicker in Jason Conrad, but it may not have to get to that point because of Jason Conrad, because of that missed extra point right there.
And our statistician, Ralph Cabardell, tells us that the two of the 3 Roosevelt scoring drives have been under a minute, 51, 57 seconds, and it's really been the big play. Hubbard, Allen. It's been the big play. They've had a 53-yard run from Raheem Allen. You've had the 77-yard touchdown pass from Marcella to Allen, and you've had Marcella's 72-yard touchdown pass. Hey, listen to these numbers. Marcella is 3 for 3, 162 yards. It's quite an average.
And that's not too bad. He picks his spots well.
2 touchdowns. Yeah.
He's got to give a little bit of credit to Raheem Allen and to Jerome Hubbard, because they've done probably about 85% of that yardage on the ground after they've made the catch.
It is 20-14, the Indians, and this should be a very entertaining 6:01. They will kick off. Bowendo, Hopgood, Summers, back there, the 3 stars for White Plains. These 2 teams could end up playing again. 4 teams from Class A will make the playoffs. North Rockland could be one of them. Carmel could be one of them. Both of these teams could be in there. Still another this week and then next week left. Elaborate point system. And look at that kick. Look at that. The wind must have shifted, because that's all the way to the 5-yard line.
Big clip right there.
Yeah. This will come back, whatever does happen here, and Summers goes over the 25-yard lines, but forget that run back, it's coming back.
Yeah, and that's a clip on the 16-yard line. That's marked from the spot of the foul, so it's going to be half the distance. White Plains is going to start with inside their own 10-yard line.
Pete, let's pick up the clip.
13? Yeah, White Captain. I hate to give you a number, but watch this right here. Boom.
Yes, there it is.
You just cannot put your helmet or cannot block in the back unless your helmet is in the front of the player, and in that case it was not.
Personal foul, Cliffy. First down.
All right, Leo is our referee. Good call, great camera work, and our director today, Craig Myerson, in the truck, gets that one for us, and White Plains is in a hole. At the 9-yard line, I believe they will put it. Make it the 8. So, all you got to do is go 92 yards against a stifling defense, against a defense that, coming in today, has given up just 26 points in 5 games. Here it is. It took them all 2 plays, and Marcella and Hubbard hook up for 72 of the 74-yard drive. 5:30 to go and counting.
White Plains has spread it out a little bit here. 1 tight end.
And they may have taken too much time.
No. Offensive left end, Melvin Parrish jumped off sides. And he's a captain. You know, a captain needs to know better. Here are the mistakes that we talked about early on that Mark Santanato said can bury us if they happen at the wrong time. And this is the wrong time.
They're at the 3-yard line, and now they got to be real careful, because the safety puts it up to an 8-point lead. Offensive line for White Plains: Everett Kamen, Jamie Pomponi, Michael Bell, Andy Martinez, Masek Baranowski. Played a pretty steady game. Summers out of his end zone, down the sideline, and knocked out of bounds by Raheem Allen. at the 14-yard line. And Michael Summers seen a lot of quick players today. Michael Summers might be the quickest.
Yeah, he might be. It's a shame that he's playing quarterback when he could be in the backfield, but that's a big play for them. Gets him a little bit of breathing room, sets up a second and about 5.
Yeah, he got 10 yards.
And now what they can do now is they can try to establish a little bit of that passing, that short passing game that we talked about. We talked about before how I was a little bit surprised that Mark Santodonato has not thrown to the flat yet. This might be his situation to do it, and he may have waited to the exact right time to call in a couple of those markers today.
This time Summers gives off. And Fuendo will be short of the first down. Not by much, but the junior will be a little bit short. Remember, DiPetro's a sophomore. Fuendo's a junior, so he's going to be certainly a star in Section 1 next year. Martinez and Kamen come back also next year from the line, as does Whitmire, Billy Young. Here it is again.
He almost lost that ball.
And they'll measure this. 4:56 left to play in the football game, and the Roosevelt Indians lead it by a score of 20-14.
I think they may have gotten it, Eric.
Ooh. Just a little bit short.
Ooh.
It's a couple credit cards short. That's about it.
A couple of your big credit cards.
So it's a 3rd down and inches. And now, do you have the guts, if you're White Plains, and you're that man, to fake it and go long?
Oh, there's no need to do that.
Well,
you need to get the first down. You need to get the first down. You got 2 plays to get it. Once you've established the first down, then throw it on first down if you want. But you've got to get it first. There's no need to do that.
There's a good look at the coaches. 2 of the finest in all the section. What a war this has been. They're certainly friends. They had a long talk before the game, and they realized they could meet again in the playoffs in 2 weeks. One of these teams is likely to represent Section 1 and go onward toward the state playoffs. Michael Summers straight ahead, and he didn't need much, and he didn't get much, but
he didn't get much at all, but it's a first down.
Yeah. Got about a half a yard, and that'll be the first down in the 4th quarter at all.
Okay, now with 4:42 left, now it's time to start putting the ball up in the air. You could set up a couple of plays off of passing plays. If you get the ball up the field a little bit, you could set up a draw play. You could set up a sprint draw. I think a sprint draw would be perfect with White Plains. This is when you got to start moving it. You've gotten out of that hole of that first down on the 8-yard line.
Fuendo right, and he dives ahead.
Looks like they're going to call another hold on White Plains.
And that'll be very costly because that'll push him 10 or so back. And Dion Fuendo not getting up too quickly this time.
And I think that's a good call. I think it's on DiPietro. Some good camera work there.
Listen to what
It'd be tough to see on the opposite side of the field if we have the replay, but he was locked up with the fella he was blocking a little bit too long, and that kind of. Actually, we will get a good look.
Got a hold.
I don't know if that was the call. See, I think it was right there. I think he called Hubbard
10-yard line,
pulling him down instead of the play on Atkins. But either one, regardless of which one he called, they're going to go 1st and 20 again inside their own 10-yard line.
And that hurts. That pushes him back to the 10. Yeah, you're right, Pete. The penalty was called. I didn't see the White Plains Tiger called for it, but they were trying to block Jerome Hubbard, and it hasn't been easy to do that today.
Not at all.
We're approaching the 4-minute warning, and this should tick down to the 4-minute warning today. Yeah, so there's 4 minutes to go. I'd like to thank a couple of Westchester 10 alumni here. Christopher Chulo doing camera work on the field. Carl Cacciola is here as well. Carl opened up his own place, a Tuscan Cafe, and it's in Hartsdale, and he'd like to invite everyone to come over to his place. And it's got dinner. It's kind of an everything place. Got coffee there, ice cream, pizza, homemade pizza. Good place. Tuscan Cafe in Hartsdale, 159 Central Avenue. He's certainly been working with us for a long time here. Donating his time, fine cameraman. So certainly mentioning that.
Now we need to get him to donate some food.
All right, here we go. It's a first down as we're under 4 minutes to go, but long to go. Here's Summers. Good protection. Nobody's open. And he just dumps it off. And he just got rid of it. And
he threw that ball, Eric, 40 yards, 45 yards on the fly, on the way down, as he had somebody corralling him around the neck. That's an incredible throw. Watch the arm strength that this fella has. You've got James Atkins coming after you, and he's on his way down, and watch this throw, 40 yards.
That's a perfect spiral, too. Really nothing he can do. His brother, by the way, Henry, former star here, playing football at Nassau Community College. These days, been a long line of Summers stars here. Henry Snapper Summers before him. One of them better than the next. Second down and 20. Another passing situation. Good protection over the middle. That time they tried a timing pattern. And it was incomplete. Intended receiver was Conrad. He caught the touchdown pass in the first half, and it'll be 3rd and 20 for the Tigers. And we'll watch it one more time.
He just got this. Mark Sandonato said on the short pass he overthrows it. This one he might have overthrown it a little bit. Tries to get a little too cute, getting it in there a little too tight, and he had a receiver open. Wouldn't have been for a first down, but would have set up a 3rd and about 7, which is a lot better than 3rd and 20.
Well, what White Plains needs to do here is very simply, in the next 2 plays, get 20 yards, or they are about to pick up their first defeat of the 95 football campaign. 3rd down situation. It's been a game of big plays. The Tigers need one here. Summers again to throw. He'll keep it. And he'll get to the 20-yard line. So he'll get back to the original line of scrimmage.
Set up about a 4th and about 10, and this is going to be an interesting decision for Mark Sandonato.
Oh, there's no decision. You have to go for it with 3:17 to go. They've already used at least one of their timeouts.
I don't think he is, Eric. I think he's going to try to punt the ball.
Summers runs the ball up to the 19, a 9-yard gain. 4th and 11 for the Tigers.
He is going to kick it away with 3 minutes, 17 seconds left.
Well, unofficially, they have 2 timeouts left. Summers is the punter, and he will punt, it looks like. Remember, watch for the fake. Puts his foot into it, and he does punt. And Marcella back there wisely lets it go. Excellent punt, and it is down with 3:06 to go at the 37-yard line. By the way, Conrad, Pete, has done an excellent job on special teams as well.
He's done a fabulous job on special teams. Now, what White Plains has to do here is they have to utilize their timeouts well, and they have to come up with big plays defensively as we get a good look at Jason Conrad, who's done a good job with 2 extra points for White Plains so far. But they've got to play good defense now, cannot give up a first down. A first down will mean the game is over for them. And what they've got to do is they've got to utilize those timeouts, try to get some good penetration, get them down in a hurry, and then just try to remember, let's keep something in mind. There was a snap over the head of the Roosevelt punter way back when.
Clock is going. Remember, there's no play clock where the players could look at, so they can't really take it down to the final second each time. There's 2:40 to go for Marcella and the Indians. Webb, way in the backfield. Paris has made a host of tackles today, and Webb will lose a couple, but that's not all that important. The clock is still going, and White Plains has not stopped it. 2:18 and counting. And on second down, after this play, you could be sure White Plains will call a timeout.
They have to burn their 2 timeouts right after this play, stop it after second down, stop it after third down, and then hope that you can get a big play. Now remember, Mike Summers is the punt returner, and I'll tell you something, if I'm inside of a minute, that's the guy I want returning a punt for me is Michael Summers.
Well, you're inside 2 minutes to go. Another handoff, Hubbard. He'll get a few, and now White Plains will have to stop the clock, and they do with 1:43 to go. All right, Dan Loughran is on the field and watching with us. Dan.
Eric, I just overheard the White Plains coaches talking, and they realize the time is coming down to the wire, and they have to do some big moves. Not only does Mike Summers have to come through, which he's been doing, but their secondary is the key. They realize they have to free him up, and hopefully that'll make the difference for them this afternoon. Back to you.
That's if they get the ball back. And, once you get the ball back at that point, they're, if they're fortunate enough to get it back, they're going to be in trouble because they're going to have to get out of bounds and,
Well, all they have to do, they have to make one stop here. I mean, that's it. You can't give up first down because you give up first down, the game's over. So you got to make one stop, and after you make that stop, you call the timeout, and you'll probably get the ball with about a minute and 20 or a minute and 15 left. And, a minute 15, a minute 20 is a lot of time with players like Hopgood, Boendo, and Michael Summers.
Now, can it get any better than this? Well, probably not, but we'll try. Next week, we'll be at Rye for the annual Harrison-Rye matchup. And Harrison, a great football team. They've only lost one game all season long, so you could see that one next week. That's our game of the week, Harrison and Rye.
I'm looking forward to that one next week, Eric. There's so much tradition in that game, and we get to throw somebody into the pond after it's over. It's a lot of fun each year when we get to go there.
What if it's a tie? Who goes in? Maybe we'll throw you in.
No. I think actually they should throw you in. As a matter of fact, I may lead the charge there.
Okay, it's 3rd down and 9 with 1:43 to go. White Plains, I think, has one timeout remaining. Handoff. Major.
Now you got to call the timeout.
And he gets...
Okay, now let's keep two things in mind, Eric, on this punt play. Number one, there was Lincoln Grappy had a problem with the snap, went over his head. That set up a White Plains touchdown. And number two, his last punt was an 8-yard punt.
And let's keep one other thing in mind. Mark Santanato really made the right move, as it turns out, with punting the football. I disagreed with it
No,
at the
absolutely.
time. No, you agreed with him, and it was the right move because they had the 2 timeouts. They kicked it, they stopped them, and now, instead of being in a 4th and 10 for the game, now Roosevelt is in their own territory and forced to punt. And now, again, the Indians have to execute the punt well, and even if they don't, White Plains is going to have a minute and change to go to get this tying score.
The key on this punt return is going to be Michael Summers. If he can get some positive yardage, get the ball up to the 30, maybe the 40-yard line, it's not inconceivable to go 50 or 60 yards in a minute and 20 seconds. White Plains, we saw them against Scarsdale. I mean, I know that the caliber of Roosevelt is leaps and bounds above the talent at Scarsdale, but they had 4 or 5 drives that day that were less than a minute.
It is not raining at the moment. Rain has stopped. Grappy is the punter, one of the best in the section. Michael Summers, the lone receiver back there. He looks like they're going for the block. They don't get it.
Get away from him. There you go, another shank.
And he shanked it again, and Grappy is upset with himself. He has blundered the last 2 punts, and this from a great punter, and what field position for White Plains.
And Michael Summers didn't have to return the ball up to the 40. They kicked it out of bounds at the 40. So you've got to go 60 yards in a minute and a half with no timeouts.
Okay, but all right, we're going to go out. We're going to come right back with the conclusion.
As the race heats up for Campaign 96, C-SPAN is there. Watch C-SPAN for complete grassroots coverage as candidates set out to develop a firm base of support. From nominations to debates to the final challenge, Election Night, C-SPAN is your source for in-depth coverage of Campaign 96. Watch C-SPAN and watch history in the making. Campaign 96 on C-SPAN, the political network of record.
All right, minute 30 to go, minute 31 on the clock. 20-14 Roosevelt. White Plains the ball at their 40-yard line. They cannot stop the clock again, which means you're likely to see a lot of passing down the stretch here. But remember, they still have some time, minute 31 to go. Summers is the QB. He's going to throw. Good protection from the line.
Picked off.
Marcella picks it off. Chris Marcella will seal the Roosevelt Indians' 6th win of the football season with a first down interception, and the crowd lets out a gasp here at White Plains.
Well, you know what? It's fitting that this game ends on a big play from one of the stars to the other star. These have been the two guys who've done it today. Michael Summers, maybe a little bit misguided in that pass. I mean, he didn't need to get it all in one try, but Chris Marcella comes up with the big play. He has been the star offensively running this team, calling 2 audibles for touchdowns. Let's keep that in mind. And then beyond that, he just made the big defensive play. Now all Roosevelt has to do is kneel down twice and this game's over.
So the Indians with just a couple of knees, and they're going to go to 6-0 and win League 1A, although it'll be official when they still have to beat Scarsdale next week, of course, to make it official. But Scarsdale's a weak team without a win, and that shouldn't present a problem for the Indians. And remember, these two teams may meet in the playoffs. Of course, White Plains now has to beat Mount Vernon next week. If they don't, they could find themselves out of the playoffs.
Yeah, they really can. And Mount Vernon is a good team. They put just an absolute shellacking on North Rockland earlier this season. Caught North Rockland napping a little bit. That's going to be a good game. I think the team who wins that game is going to be the last team to get into the playoffs.
Another knee for Marcella, and that is it. Roosevelt wins it by a score of 20-14, and they're celebrating on the Roosevelt sidelines. And there we go. And they're getting on the bus as they come away and they steal a win here at Parker Stadium with a 20-14 win. And they're treating it like a championship. And Tony DiMatteo, Pete, what can you say, has just won another big game.
It's just another big game for Tony DiMatteo.
And you know what he's doing out there? He is tempering his kids. The first thing he did is said, calm down, stop it. And the two coaches...
Well, that's because he knows it's not over. You know, they've got another game to go, and then they've got a tough playoff route. I tell you, we're going to see these two teams coming up again in the playoffs. I honestly feel that way. Mark Santadonato, he did a great job. We got to remember, you know, they're good friends. They come out of that whole big constellation, as it is, of coaches. You know, it's Tony DiMatteo, it's Joe Casarella, it's Castellano up at Nyack, Lou DiRienzo at New Rochelle, Mark Santadonato here at White Plains, Artie Troilo at Harrison, who we're going to see next week. It's just a great core of coaches. And I'll tell you something, a lot of people have said Section 1 football is down and the players aren't as good as they have been and things like that. The players might not be as good, but the coaches are the best in the state.
Post game coming up.